Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Tomas Ericsson, who is the CEO of AMRA, or at AMRA. Thomas, thank you for joining us today. For our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Bob, for having me.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
so, yes, I'm the CEO of AMRA. We are simplistically put, a global performing rights organization mainly targeted to digital collections outside the United States.
Interesting. We're going to dive into it. I was going to ask a couple of things, but we're going to save it because we do want to dive. How do you target? Who do you work with? And all of that. It seemed like a service much needed, and it's very helpful for a lot of independent artists out there and big artists also. You have a very interesting, diverse career, as you said, and before the interview started, and very interesting. I guess let's start. Let's go through your journey. You started. What got you interested into finance and the music industry together? You were in finance before, correct?
Yes. I worked investment banking or insurance banking, but I think I've always been interested in music. My brother used to bring me to Thin Lizzy concerts and all kinds of stuff. I had a band. We recorded a EP. We were really bad, but it's always been there. So I think the combination of music finance came much later. I never really thought I would be in this business, if I'm honest, given all the roles I had before actually coming into it.
Uh-huh.
So I think that came much later. The fact that I had a finance background and how that helped me in the music industry.
And then let's talk about your role. You were an assistant VP and controller at Scandia. Did I pronounce it right? Scandia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Scandinavian Investment Management Group. It's a Swedish insurance investment group.
Uh-huh.
I worked for them during the 90s in New York. And basically, I mean, for me, that was everyone goes through the 80-hour week sweatshop type of years. Those were mine. Those were mine.
Yes. Been there many times. Been there many times. Yes.
Yeah, but it's something I feel was good in terms of how I established my own work ethic going forward.
Amazing. So, I mean, so far your journey between finance and working for insurance and investment banking, all of this must gonna have to start to shape your career and preparing you for the music business. You come in with a lot of ammunition, like, hey, I'm good in finance, with numbers, with organization, with leadership. All of the things that a lot of people, when they start in the music business, they kind of disconnect to it.
Yeah. No, I think for me, I mean, I helped started a telco in Sweden called GlocalNet. We're there for a couple of years and exited. I then went to work for Dell Computers as finance director for Europe. That actually, I would say that Dell Computers changed a lot in terms of how I see really efficient organizations.
How come?
Well, I think Dell at the time were, if not the biggest, one of the biggest.
Yeah.
And early 2000, and the way they sold their computers was not in stores; it was all online. So the enormous amount of data and dashboards we in finance were able to see live all the time from these sales was just for me, that was like next level. Never seen that before. So I learned a lot about how do you track stuff, how do you track data, and all of these things. I think that does help me when we started AMRA as well. Just there in the background. Today, I mean, music industry it is still music, it is still creative, but essentially, if you're going to make money, it's all about data.
Yes.
It's really
Yes. Data is big. And I just wonder how much money that data is worth when you used to work for Dell, that data.
Well, I think Dell had their ups and downs. So they went down and then they're now up again, being one of the biggest again. But I admire that company. I think it's a great company.
Mhm.
But I think, what led me into this industry was more of a fluke, if I'm honest. I had been having roles, as I said, over the years that required a lot of travel.
Yeah, but wait, before even you started AMRA and came said, hey, I'm going to sit in New York. That's where I want to live and start my business. You went to work. You became the director or the managing director at Universal Pictures in Sweden. Yes.
Yeah.
How did you came about that role to be the managing director of Universal Pictures in Sweden?
Again, it was many years of finance. I was kind of fed up with the cycles of the stock market and the reporting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try some other different industries. I had a headhunter I'd worked with for many years, and I said to her, anything except anything in finance. And this role came up, and I interviewed for it, and I got it, which was my first kind of tap into a more creative media experience. It was a really interesting, and what a fantastic product to work with. Film, all the fantastic movies that Universal has made over the years.
Interesting. What was some of the highlights of being the director?
Well, I think just how my personality is. I love growth, and I love seeing how we can grow bigger. So I think one of the highlights were when we were able to sign DreamWorks and distribute their movies, and then later on we also signed Columbia TriStar. We had all
Mhm.
those three studios under our umbrella for Scandinavia, which was pretty amazing.
So your role only focus on Scandinavia,
Yeah,
bring in content and get
yeah,
the rights for
oh, yeah.
that territory.
Theatrical release and DVD sales.
Don't usually Universal when they sign such, when they have new movies and all of that, don't they have worldwide release rights on it or not really? Not always.
Yeah, on the big studio movies that comes out
Yeah,
of Hollywood,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. But it requires, you know, a theatrical
Preparation,
plan,
marketing,
theatrical
yes,
plan,
planning,
and local talent.
strategies, yes, yes, yes. I got it. Interesting. How long were you there for at Universal
I was there for
Pictures?
almost 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, I think. But
Hmm.
that's really when what happened there was interesting. General Electric went in and acquired Universal and NBC, the TV broadcast
Hmm.
network, and they put their own CFOs and managing directors in immediately. I thought I had actually made it because it was only me and the guy in the UK that were left.
That's it. And you're
But
like, okay,
they came in and also said to us that we need to leave. But I don't regret that. It was they gave me a really decent deal, and timing wise, it was awesome because we just in 2005 we had our first child, our son came, so I was actually home with him for a year and thinking about
interesting.
what I wanted to do.
It's good. I mean, hey, sometimes there's always something positive come out of something.
Yeah.
Then after that, did you work also you were the CFO and EVP for media markets at
Well, yeah.
STEM Impacts, right?
So
At
that's
STEM.
STIM, the Swedish Performing Rights Organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happened. I wanted to have a role that didn't require any travel because I now had a son. I didn't want to be away too much. So I looked at roles that what I thought didn't require roles like that, and most of them came up were finance roles. This role came up as CFO for STIM. I didn't know what they did and who they were, so I went for that interview. And I remember vividly meeting the then CEO and chairman of the board, and they said, "We collect money for songwriters through, we license their rights to radio, TV, broadcast, bars, pubs, and whatnot in Sweden.
Hmm.
Collect the royalties, and we process them, and we pay out like half of it to the songwriter." I got intrigued by the fact that I didn't understand why a dollar that came through the door became 50 cent or 70 cent to the songwriter. I was curious about what happened there in the middle in terms of fees or whatever else they did with it. So yeah, took that role. They offered me that role, and I was there for a year as CFO before I started ICE. It's a joint venture between PRS and STIM.
Interesting. So after Universal, really working for STEM was the first job that kind of, I would say kind of rolled your sleeves and started to learn the mechanics of the music industry. And it was more the publishing actually. And this is usually publishing comes later, but you went in to the hard side of the music business.
Yeah, head on.
And really, yes, yes. And the publishing always is the toughest spot that many people don't understand it, really.
No, and if I'm honest, it was in my, where I came from and what I had done in the past, I couldn't believe how and why it worked like it worked. Understand why it had to be so inefficient. Over time, obviously, I learned more and more, and obviously, a lot of it has to do with local copyright law in different countries that makes it more complicated. But I still feel that it's too complicated, which is why, fast forward, I started AMRA eventually.
I'm sure you came across quite a few challenges working for all of that. And ICE, as you said, ICE, it was a joint venture between JV and yeah.
Yeah, I think the challenges were for any PRO around the world. I mean, STIM and a lot of these PROs around the world, they're really good at what they do. The problem they have a long history and legacy, and they also sometimes work a little bit inefficient due to their board structure and committees and whatnot. And in 2006, 2007, when we saw iTunes came out and it started to kind of get some traction around
Yes.
digital, I kind of felt that we didn't have at the time any technology to meet that future. How do we process data that comes to us on a weekly basis? That never happened before. Or what happens when we actually see exactly what is being used? That has never been seen before either. So for me, it was like we have to build this technology, which was partly why this ICE JV project started.
Got it.
To try to meet that.
I want to say, your journey, you're extremely lucky. But again, I think it's your accolades that speak for itself. Your experience and knowledge in finance and leadership kind of paved the door for you and made it easier to get these type of jobs in a way.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, that could, or I'm just lucky, as you said.
We don't want people to give up hope, Yes, go to school, get your degree, and work for big companies, learn, and then see what else you want to do after that.
I think if
gain the experience and the knowledge.
Open to, learn.
Yeah.
And even if you feel it, like I did come from different industries where I had senior roles, I felt like I had to go back to the school bench when I started to work for STEM. Even though I was senior with a CFO title, I did not understand publishing and had to learn it from scratch.
Yeah, that's the part. But then from there, it opened your eyes and made you understand the business really.
Correct.
From the bottom up.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I know what's going on. I know
how to
yeah,
to understand working side of
the
neighboring rights. It's not easy.
Your journey didn't stop there. Before you got to AMRA, then you went to work for Cobalt Music Group in the UK, correct?
No, that was here in New York.
Oh, it was in New York. Okay. And so you were the president of Society Relations. What is that, Society Relations?
So just to give you a little bit of backdrop to that, I think one of the things that I did at STEM was signing a lot of publishers for pan-European digital licensing.
Yes.
And one of the publishers we signed Warner and others, but it was Cobalt Music Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting with Cobalt then and now as well is they're very tech driven, right? And they felt that we should combine technologies to process data, which we did at the time. And the results were phenomenal. I felt that this is a solution we should take globally. Willard Aldrich, who's the founder and chairman of Cobalt, and I discussed this a lot. And he really is the inspiration behind starting AMRA in the first place, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, he is. He was the driver in the sense that I kind of felt that this is wrong. We need to do something. And he kind of felt this is what we should do. So we talked about it a lot. And eventually I left STEM and became president of Society Relations. I was only doing that for about a year. And really what I did was having all the relationship with all the PROs around the world, but at the same time working on how do we structure a new platform to meet the future of digital consumption on the publishing side. And that required both technology, but it also required rights. It also required publishers we represent to withdraw their publishing rights on digital from all the PROs so that we, AMRA, could license them directly with the services and get the money directly.
Got it.
Groundwork that had to be done here, and AMRA launched in 2015.
Amazing. So really, why then you decided to quit Cobalt, or how did
No, it was more like, as you probably know, Cobalt Music Group owns AMRA. So it's more of a transition where they asked me if I wanted to take over and become CEO of AMRA, which obviously I did. That was the kind of company that I had felt for the future, what the future might bring.
So AMRA is pretty much 100% owned by Cobalt Music.
Correct.
Yes, and you run AMRA. You pretty much make the decisions and all of that for AMRA.
I do. Yes.
Amazing. And what's AMRA's really, if we dig inside of it, really is duties, and what does it really? I know you have an app out there already. You have your own platform for AMRA. Tell us more about it for our listeners and viewers might not be familiar with it.
If I put it really simple,
yes,
I look at it this way. When we started AMRA in 2014-15, about 20% of the major publishers, including Cobalt, of their royalties were digital. If the royalty pool was 100%, 20% of that came from a digital source here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, when we did the same study, it was about 65 to 70%, slightly higher for Cobalt. It was like 73%. And then you think to yourself, if you're a songwriter here in the U.S. and you want to collect your digital royalties, the 75%, which is going to be 80% in a couple of years or even higher, you really have to make sure that you position your collections and your rights in the right manner in order to collect. So if you take the traditional route, which has always been the case for songwriters, you become a member of a PRO here in the US or in the UK or wherever. And then that PRO will have agreements with all the other PROs around the world, right, to collect on their behalf. A local PRO like PRS in the UK or STIM in Sweden, they only collect their own territory, generally.
Mm-hmm.
Digital, in Europe, there are pan-European services that do it. ICE is one of them, which is PRS and STIM. But if you're an ASCAP member, for instance, you really are not collected directly. All your digital is collected by a local PRO.
Mm-hmm.
Is that bad? No, not necessarily. However, not many PROs around the world are capable to process trillions of transactions every quarter. They don't even have the incentive or capital to invest in such technology.
Trillions in transactions.
Yeah, we processed 5 trillion transactions last year.
Wow.
We process about 50 billion lines of usage data every quarter.
Your service must be massive.
Yes, but imagine this. Every time you click on a song for more than 30 seconds, it's registered in Spotify. Spotify reports all the usages to us, regardless if it's ours or not, for every territory where they operate, which is over 200 territories. So you can imagine all the people using Spotify and how often they listen to music, and that's just one service. We license 38 different services. So the volumes are absolutely enormous, which requires investment and capital to deploy more technology and scale, right? Because what we strive for is to find every song that is being used that we control or that we represent, even if it's worth $0.1 in Vietnam. We'll find it and we will claim it and we'll get paid for it. And I think digital made it possible because it is transparent. All the data is there. And we're able to collect all of this directly from these services, avoiding the PRO network and whatever deductions and things they do. And we have all the data coming through to us. We can present it to our clients through our portal, and they have all the transparency and all the data there. Plus, as the only PRO in the world, we give all of our songwriters and publisher clients full audit rights.
How big is Global Music's catalog? Because that's what AMRA handles.
Off the top of my head, I think it's about close to 1 million songs.
Wow.
I think I might be wrong there, so don't take my word.
And these million songs are everywhere in the world.
Yeah, but remember, we also represent an additional 6 publishers, and we represent a bunch of different songwriters as well. So, I mean, the scale of us, we've grown from literally zero revenue to hitting close to 200 million, hopefully this year.
AMRA.
Yes.
Amazing. Congratulations. Really, congratulations. You came a long.
Yeah, well, it's not only me. I mean, there's been an amazing team that helped me. Everyone involved, and also on the
You can literally give a lecture about the music business now, or write a book.
No,
Somebody who had no business being in the music business, but look at you. Amazing. Congrats, my friend. Really, it's very impressive. Very impressive. Yes, absolutely. I mean, how long have you been in the music business so far?
Since 2005.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've been in the music business for a while. You took many roles, took on many roles, and higher roles, and you really got involved in the music business, started from the publishing, the backside of it, the side that everybody doesn't want to deal with, to avoid. There's so many tricks to it, so many nitty gritty, tiny things. You literally, you need to go to school for it. Like if you want to learn the publishing business. It took me a long time to understand it. But do I get it 100%? I admit, no, I had a record label. To me, it was very simple in the beginning. But then the more I dive into it and other things start popping up, the neighboring rights and this and that, I'm like, wait a second. Yeah. This is getting a little crazy here.
No, it is.
Yeah. So your own opinion, what you think, I mean, you already know what's, certain things in the music business say this is done backwards. This is old. It's set up. It worked maybe 20 years ago, but it's not going to work now or 30 years ago. And, a lot of things in the music business, it doesn't change with time. And it doesn't, even technology advances, certain thing practices is done in the old book, written in an old book, and it's going to be this way. What would you like to see change in the music business?
If I can speak on the publishing or PRO side of things, there are many things, obviously.
Yes, please.
I think one of the things is because, like I said, the biggest brunt to the collection cake is digital now, right?
Yes.
And I kind of feel like we've invested a lot of money in our technology to make sure we accurately can claim everything accurately, not overclaim or underclaim, but accurately claim for what is ours. If you have other claimants out there who are not claiming accurately and creating disputes, for instance, between works, I
Yeah.
think there's a need for PROs and publishers to start sharing data between them to some, there are platforms such as ours out there, like ICE or SACEM in France.
Yeah.
We talk to them all the time about doing this. We share a lot of information between us to clear up different disputes and whatnot. I think it needs more of that on a more global scale to make sure that money is not being locked up somewhere. And it, it has, I'm not going to say anything badly about any PRO, but sometimes it is the PROs who are holding things up for a variety of different reasons. I think, I would argue that most of them, if not all of them, try really hard to do a good job. But sometimes it's limited to the fact that, you don't have the scale in your repertoire, or you don't have the capital to deploy good technology or the incentive to do so, which is completely understandable.
Yes.
So I think there's a need for collaboration more than ever before. We're in a good place for what we represent, but I think it can be better for us. Everything can always become better in my mind. That's one part of it. The other one big for me is legislative in many territories where there are some restrictions legislatively for entering certain territories. South Korea is one of those where we feel that's a territory we'd really like to go into. Can't do it now for legal reasons. Nobody can except for the local PRO in South Korea. I think it would benefit songwriters if we could, because the more, for me, it's like this. If PROs don't like what we do, or if people or competitors feel they don't like what we do, they don't like it because we create more money for songwriters.
Yes.
And even if money is gone on one end and it creates more money on the other end, for me, ultimately, I don't care. It's better for the songwriter. And that's what I'm here to do. Create more money and maximize the earnings for songwriters and publishers.
Yes.
And so if that creates a little friction here and there from once in a while, then we can deal with that.
When it comes to publishing, what is the one thing that always could make things smooth or really could make it extremely, extremely tough?
Ooh, big subject. What could make it really smooth?
I have my own answer to it.
Yeah, let me hear it.
In one word, metadata.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. That's actually what I meant when I said collaborate on data.
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant by that. And I think if you look at the US, the MLC has actually...
Do you feel it's a mess, the metadata?
Yes,
it's a big mess.
I think everyone is trying really hard to get their metadata in such shape that it's actually really good. I do think the MLC has done something good here in the US, where they have an open database where you can go in and actually look at everything and change things that is wrong, make sure your claims are accurate. I think that's helpful. I think other companies should do the same outside the US. We're happy to share our work data and metadata to the extent that it helps others to avoid claiming on our shares.
Do you think that the ISRC really, it's an old thing? Do you feel the need, because you could change it? It could be changed easy?
It's not that easy to change, though. The original ISRC is what it is, but you can have 500 ISRCs coming in after that with different versions of the song and derivative works and whatnot. And that's what I mean with metadata. You need to make sure that you have enough tech to capture all of those works, to capture all those ISRCs, and then have the affiliated ISWC, which is the songwriter side of it. And the data is there. The sources to get that data is there. It's just a matter of companies need to invest.
But there's no central place where the metadata is correct. This is the correct metadata.
No. There was many years ago an attempt, and anyone who listens to this and recognizes this will laugh, to actually create what you just said, a global rights database. It was called the GRD project. And it had all the PROs around the world, plus publishers and DSPs around the table to try to sort out how do we build a global rights database. It failed.
Why?
For a number of reasons. One is sometimes, PROs do compete with each other. So who should build it and who invests and how much money it's going to cost and who pays for what and how much do we pay. So funding became a problem after a while. Looking at it in hindsight, I think many of us thought that this is a brilliant initiative. It's going to take years to build it. But in hindsight, it was kind of naive to think that everyone in this industry on all sides should sit down around the table and agree on everything. I think we should think of it as building it in small buckets, building it up to something bigger. That's what
How much money just sitting there not being collected in publishing? That because of wrong metadata or nobody's claiming it. A lot.
I think it's over $1 billion would be my guess.
At least.
Yes.
At least, yeah.
It is.
Just sitting there and been sitting there for a long time and piling up more and more and more. Yeah, wrong metadata or just being unclaimed or just wrong metadata?
I think it's more unclaimed than wrong metadata. And I think that's the problem where you have, remember in this day and age, it's not so hard to become a do-it-yourself songwriter artist and release your songs on any of these Spotify or whatever. What you don't know as an artist when you're young is that in order to collect the publishing side, you need to be affiliated with a PRO. You don't necessarily have to have a publisher, but you then can register your songs with MLC. And there are ways to do it, but it's an educational process for everyone that I think will continue year in and year out as new songwriters enter into this market.
Going forward, you say, okay, there's hundreds of millions of songs out there, famous and independent and all of that. We cannot, to combine all of this, as you said, it's going to take time, money, tech, and all of this. What about going forward? Is there a new system should be in place that where AI involved, that to kind of with data and all of this to kind of, but have change the rule? Because I feel, you need an RSRC, you need this. How do we change all of this to something new where it matches the times we're living in? And we're in a digital age, correct? But even as technology is advancing and consumption of content is going to change. It went from physical, and nobody thought that will ever go away. It's real estate, it's factories, job, trucking, manufacturing, printers, companies, all of that, billions of dollars. And then poof, vanished. If I ask my 15-year-old daughter, have you heard of Tower Records or Sam Goody? She's like, what is that, Dad? And now maybe are we on that, I would say 3 to 5 years from now, are we on that kind of intersection that we are, digital streaming going to be the way we understand it and consume it now? It's going to be kind of part of the past 5-10 years from now? Or 10 years be even too far, maybe?
I think that's too far. I think,
5 years, 3 to 5.
We are already globally more than 60% consuming all of our music on a digital platform. If you look at Southeast Asia, it's much higher.
Yeah.
And so do I believe that there is another system or technology that could help this? Yes, I do.
It is coming. It's there. Look at the video games, and it's going to follow that kind of trend.
But I think we try to use AI for the purpose of training our systems to learn matches, to learn derivative works globally. So we use AI even today to help us find our music, if you will. I think in the future, I think AI could play a really, really positive role in getting the data correct, right? But the whole trick has always been, ever since I started in this industry, has been everyone does not want to share data. And if you can't share your data, there will be no solution, right? So it's almost like looking at blockchain when that came around. When people came up to me and said, hey, why don't we just let blockchain register contracts for every song and have it authoritative? Every publisher and every PRO in the world would said, great technology, but we don't trust somebody else to change the contract. It's our song. It's our songwriter. And so even though blockchain is an interesting technology, nobody really thought it was suited the purpose of publishing, if you will, or PRO industry. Maybe that'll change in the future, but I think technology, whether it's AI or something else, will be helpful to solve some of these problems. Yes.
In my opinion, I think to kind of solve the problem going forward, whether you're a major artist from major label or independent artist, it doesn't matter. Any new song that need to get distributed, it has to be registered somewhere as a central database, and you cannot change it anymore. Once it's in, it's in. You would need some kind of contract, lawyers, a court order to change the metadata to go in for once, and that's it, before even you distribute it. So you'll get some kind of a certificate or a number to get it. Yes, I do have the certificate, the metadata registered, I can release it. And now so all the claims going to be done properly from the beginning, all the splits, all the royalty payouts, whether on stream, on mechanical, on neighboring rights, on downloads, whatever, stream, all of that stuff, publishing and commercials of the song used in a sync deal and all. The same, everybody has access to that data. And this data cannot be changed, but it's there. DSPs has access to it. Everybody, publishers have access to it. So this way, nobody could.
Remember, it's not. I think what you're talking about. Utopia is the global rights database, whatever, on both the recording side and the publishing side. I think yes, that's what's needed, but you can't create a song and have an ISRC related to that or an ISWC and think that it's locked and you need a court order to change it, because as you know, songs are being traded and bought all the time. You'll have an investment fund coming in and buy the entire catalog of Bruce Springsteen, and all of a sudden publishing and everything else changes, right?
Okay, but then you have contracts, you have lawyers, they could file for certain things and have everything right. Sure. As you said, there's over $1 billion sitting around, and this is the one you're aware of, but there's people collecting, they're not even the owners.
Yeah, I agree. But I kind of feel that there has to be somewhere more of a repository that manages all the changes. I mean, songwriters change shares, publishers, PROs on a daily basis around the world.
Yes.
And all of this, if you somehow can capture all of the changes in some kind of repository and have that distributed to the sources who collected, that's the utopia.
Well, I have to say, interesting conversation, Thomas. Really, somebody came from finance, became the professor or doctor of publishing. Yeah. Hey, you run a successful company, and you held some interesting roles, and you definitely have the knowledge and accolades for it.
Bob, I really appreciate the invite.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Two things before we say goodbye and thank you for your time is what advice you have for people just starting out in the business. And I'm sure you're going to inspire some of the people going to watch, whoever's going to watch this episode at Soundbreaker, they're going to be inspired by your accolades, your journey, the way you made a mark for yourself in the music business and how should I say, and kind of created your own path.
What would I say? I would probably say this. As you start out, you're the artist and the songwriter. I mean, some start out just as the artist or songwriter, but generally you will sit there and start looking at creating some songs that you perform. You may feel that these are good enough for me to start releasing, and you use some service to distribute them. And at that point, that's really when you start to think about, okay, what do I need to know in terms of collective? What do I absolutely need from the day one? I need to have an affiliation with a PRO. That's something you need to have. Number two, do I need a publisher? Maybe not yet, because everyone who starts out today, I would argue that almost 100% of their income will come from digital.
Mm-hmm.
Until such time that somebody discovers a song of yours and takes it more global, and maybe you get some radio spins and other things, and at that time you're going to need a publisher, right? That's when the label comes in and everything else. But before that, you may have hundreds of thousands of streams, even 1 million in aggregate, and it's just digital. But you need the PRO, and you need to choose carefully who collects on your behalf to make sure it's done effectively. And I'm not, I can promote AMRA to do that, obviously, but I think the shortest way you can get between yourself and the source who performs your songs, whether that's Apple or Spotify or YouTube, the better it's going to be for you.
Absolutely. We'll do promote AMRA. That's why you're here, to promote AMRA. Absolutely. And its services. Just a quick thing, I don't want to make it a long interview and conversation, but I'm sure there is already in the works ways to collect for songs that being generated by generative AI with a license.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like people are already, these kind of new contracts already in the market, and lawyers are drawing them,
Yep.
and companies already acquire and say, hey, we want to license your catalog for, I don't know what the rules or all the details or the breakdown of it, like for machine learning to generate, you know, music, have our, what do you call it? Our AI machine learning to kind of, you know, learn from music and release music similar to that, whether it's instrumentals or with vocals and songs and all of that. Is there any like rules already as far as like the deals, how it's structured and done, and this publishing? Nobody talks about that. That's even the more complicated part here.
Yeah.
How do you find a song that's been trained about a song that's has elements from 100 songs, and these 100 songs have, let's say, minimum 3 writers? So you got about 300 writers and 100 songs.
Yeah.
How do you?
You know, just to your first question, as far as I'm aware, there have been no contracts or agreements signed on the publishing side.
No, only licensing, no publishing, only straight up licensing. Yes.
I'd say this, you know, for many years, songwriters have used AI to create music. And I think, you know, my personal opinion is you can use AI as much as you want, even fully use AI. You're going to have a human element of that in creating the song either way, because I don't think, you know, I always believe that the human intervention, whether it's 80 or 90% created by AI, is going to make the change to become a very good song, a very big song.
Absolutely.
So do I think that there could be hundreds of millions, if not billions, of songs created fully by AI, of which 1% becomes something really big? Yes, of course. But I think those 1% are curated by people who actually know how to write music.
But it's going to make your job harder.
It's going to make it much harder, especially if we're talking
you would need big technology to can literally.
Yeah. Well, maybe at that point I'm retired and it's somebody else with a brilliant mind than mine to deal with.
It's happening now. Thomas, it's happening now. It's happening now. I don't think they're going to let you retire until you figure it out. Okay. So anything coming up? I mean, before we say goodbye to AMRA, anything that you want to, anything exciting in the coming, in the next month or two?
So we are sponsoring the Mondo Festival one of the days on the 15th of October here in Brooklyn, New York. For anyone who listens, please make your way over there. We have
Mondo Festival. You heard it here.
It's a Mondo conference here in Brooklyn. We have a whole day there planned. I will be speaking. I will be interviewing Sam Hollander, one of the biggest songwriters in the world. There's a great panels with CEOs from publishing entities. So that should be a really good day if anyone has the time to drop by.
Definitely, it's worth it, I would say. After speaking with Thomas here on Soundbreaker, a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights on publishing, rights, royalties, and all of that. So if I were you, if you want to learn something, if you're an expert in the business, it's great to hear him. And if you're starting, definitely go to Ramondo Festival in Brooklyn. What day again? October
15th.
October 15th. Yes, absolutely. All day. You know, there's some good food after you're done. Brooklyn, you know, known as some good pizza, some Italian food, some pasta, some Middle Eastern food. There's everything there. Lots of Greek food.
Indeed.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Thomas, I want to say thank you for joining us today at Soundbreaker. It's been a pleasure and an honor, sir. Obviously, definitely, I would say an encyclopedia of information coming out of you when it comes to publishing and royalties and collection. Thank you for our listeners at Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for our new episodes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.